Middlesex Township Supervisor meeting for July. Order. Let's do the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. I'm going to turn the meeting over to Supervisor Meader.
Start with public comment. Again, this, as usual, comment is for items not on the agenda. You have 3 minutes to talk. Zach will be keeping time. You cannot cede time to other members. You have your 3 minutes. Everybody has their 3 minutes. And again, these are items not on the agenda. Yes, sir. And we, as usual, name, address, even though we know who you are.
Thank you very much. Earl Bean, 303 Country Club there. This has nothing to do with the agenda tonight. I had a question for us, and I don't know the answer to this. Being in a drought as we are, they say like we're like 6 inches low on water. And the Country Club, they installed new underground piping the way it was. They got water flying every place. So I was floating downstream, looking around, and I see where they draw water out of the Conecuh Creek. How much water are they allowed to draw out of there? If you look at the creek, my God, it's so low, you can walk out there and won't be ankle deep at places.
All right, well, this is a comment only, so it's not time to answer a question, but your question is, you say that the developers are drawing water.
No. The Country Club.
Oh, the Country Club.
Yeah. I didn't know when to ask this, and it didn't pertain to Act 1 where that's why I was trying to find out.
Yeah, I think the Country Club does have a permit. My understanding is that they actually have a spring that's sort of behind the pool, that most of their water comes out of that spring. But that's one of the things we've talked about, that there's a lot of other uses of water, obviously besides data center. Country Club of Water, of course, is using roughly 300,000 gallons of water a day when they're watering their golf course. So that would be a question for the municipal authority. You certainly feel free to come to their meetings and ask them about those issues, because that's not under the control of Middlesex Township. It's under the control of the Middlesex Township Municipal Authority, not the Board of Supervisors.
Okay, thank you.
Hilda Vasquez Rosa, 25 Volcano Lane, Country Minor West. Good evening to the Supervision Board and everybody here present. As a resident, I found the way of board operate deeply concerning. It is troubling to see that answering to all basic questions are almost exclusive and a single person. This unfortunately conveys a clear lack of leadership and the preparedness among the rest of the Board of Supervision. It is shameful that citizens must formally research the draft R2K law to obtain public information that the board ought to share openly. We saw the clearest example of this recently with the rezoning of Country Minor West. How is it possible that rezoning was approved for this area when there is official evidence that the municipality lacked even the basic compliance documents? I am referring to essential records such as the latest fire safety inspection, the certificate of occupancy, and proof of compliance with local zoning ordinance, as well as report regarding the underground storage tank, UST, wells, and hazard material, hazmat management. Approving change without this information puts our community at risk. Furthermore, the lack of transparency is evident when review the responses provided to R2K request. It is outrageous to see a standard temple using instant of direct, honest answer and to have document we are legally entitled to see handled over in a disorganized manner has it create an obstacle preventing us from learning to truth. With a taxpayer deserved supervisor who take responsibility, answer truthfully, and do not hide information behind bureaucracy and generic response, and demand great transparency from you.
Any more public comment?
Frank Laboratory, 19 Mulberry Hill, Middlesex. I'm just kind of curious, what's the status of the Diamond Motel that's sitting there as a huge eyesore for people to come in?
We'll get to that when we go through codes enforcement. We'll have hopefully a little bit of an update on that. I'm not sure how much we can give you because there's some pending legal issues, so we may not be able to disclose everything. I can guarantee the township is doing everything it can to speed up this process. It's been an eyesore for a long time, and I understand where you're coming from. We might have a little bit of an update, but again, because of pending legal issues, there's only so much we can tell you at this point. All right, well, let's go on to MS4 stormwater. Zach, do you want to do that, or Jerry?
We were contacted by DEP. We're coming up on our 3-year MS4 inspection. They'll be coming in on August 10th, and they'll be going over our records to make sure we're all in compliance. They gave us a list of items that they would like to see put together so that it'll be it won't be a lengthy inspection. If we have all our paperwork, documents, they can be able to look at all of it, and they'll do inspections on the campus and so forth, and visit 1 or 2 of our MS4 projects to see how they look.
Okay.
Who's they?
DEP.
So this is like a regulatory audit, because of our permit, they come in randomly and do these inspections, but they reached out to us, they want some of these documents, maybe even ahead of time to kind of view over them, then they're gonna actually do an inspection, make sure that we're doing, what we are to be doing. And on top of that, June 30th is kind of the end of, annually, we need to do MS4 reporting. June 30th is kind of the end of that year, so we have now until September 30th to submit our annual report, so we gotta gather those documents to submit for our annual MS4 report as well.
Okay, thank you for the update. Approval of minutes, June 3rd and June 26th. We were sent those via email several days ago and have reviewed those. I don't see any issues with them, so I will make a motion to approve the minutes of June 3rd, 2026 and June 26th of 2026. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Authorize payment of bills, July 2026. I'll make a motion to authorize payment of bills for July 2026. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, report, solicitor, anything?
The only thing I have to report is, at the last meeting on June 26th, after the meeting, the board held an executive session to discuss personnel, real estate, and potential litigation, and no action was taken. That's it.
Thank you. Our engineer's not here tonight. Police?
You have my report, that's taken the record. We had about 900 calls last month. 3 officers are starting the police academy on Monday, July 6th. So, how long is it? It's about 6 months.
Okay, thank you. Fire, we have both of our chief and our deputy chief here tonight. Thank you for coming. Anything to report?
You can take my report to record, but I do have one problem I want to bring before the board. And that's 1152 Harrisburg Pike, the Holiday Inn. We have been receiving a number of automatic alarms there. In fact, 10 to date, 6 alarms within the last couple of weeks. One was this morning. I have met with the manager. He's very difficult to deal with. I'm sure jury can attest to this. They updated their system, but they kept the old detectors in place. We're finding some of these detectors are bad. We're finding a lot of the problem is in the kitchen areas. The alarms are too close to the toasters and the ovens. I've talked to them about relocating them. They just seem to ignore it. So what I'm asking the board to empower the police chief, where after 2 alarms, the ordinance says you have $100 fine. I'm asking that they give 2 forgiven and the other 8 could be assessed at $100 each if the board is agreed.
Is that usually assessed by the police?
I think it's gonna have to be an inner working between the fire chief and the litigation authority, so.
In the past, what happens is under the ordinance for fire alarms, full fire alarms, Ed would go and report it to the chief, which was Chief Kingford and Chief Sherman, and then they would go and keep a track of those, and then they would go and issue citations in order to, for the false alarms. And as you saw in my last minutes, or my things last month, I did go up and talk to them because the previous alarms company said they weren't in compliance with anything. So they changed alarm companies to this current one, and they went in and they found that there was loose wires in the box, and so they repaired those. They went and checked. They said they were there for 4.5 hours, and they checked all the sensors by blowing the false smoke in, the way you check them. And they said they all worked but one. The only issue is, like Ed said, in the kitchen area where they have served breakfast. Okay, people can go up and get their own toast in, and they can have bagels or toast or whatever. And the smoke detectors are directly over top of them. They have to be relocated, and I have to go up and talk to them about getting those relocated. The other issue is the employees at the desk have no clue on how to operate the system with that. They can go and silence it and call 911 and tell them it was a false alarm. If they do that, then Ed or Bobby would arrive there to make sure there's not a fire, and then they would cancel the fire department. Instead of having, I think there's what, 4 fire companies that respond there?
3 right now.
3. And so we're having emergency vehicles on the road when we don't have them. And so when I go up, I have to tell him that he is going to have to go and train their employees what to do. I had told them that the first time, but they never did. So I have to go up and tell them again, or else they're going to go and start getting these fines.
Sure, the manager, I met with him a couple of times.
Right.
Recently, he didn't even know what the code was to call the alarm company to cancel it.
Well, he showed me the book.
This is.
They gave him a brand new book where it says fire alarm system on it, and you open it up, and there it is. All they have to do is open it up and read it.
So we're just asking the police to enforce what's already in the zoning, so we don't need a motion.
It's already in the ordinance.
It's already in the ordinance.
Right?
Yeah, not zoning.
That's
Yeah.
so the ordinance. So we don't need a motion.
This is gonna require discussion between the fire department and us, because some of these calls the police do not respond to. So we're totally dependent on the information they give us, whether it's a false alarm, smoke that was caused by the toaster oven.
Yeah,
I think
in
we.
my report, I started doing that for you to indicate which was actually false and which was maybe storm related or actual system problems, which, as far as I'm concerned, system problems that shouldn't be addressed in handling.
Right.
Okay. So just enforce the ordinance. And I think we just need to make sure we do this uniformly across the township. You can't single out one entity. We're gonna enforce it for them and not enforce it for others. But whether or not we start enforcing and they get fines, I hate to say, but it's gonna light a fire under them to get something done, maybe? All right.
Well, council and I have been in touch about getting that automatic alarm, and I'm maybe a little late to get back on some of that, but I know there is some things that I'd like to change, so I'll get you.
Okay, thank you. Mark, zoning?
I've given you a list of permits for the month, 7 new houses being built. I issued the permit for the last house in Meadowbrook Farms. That development of around 250 homes started 30 years ago in 1996.
That's right.
And this is the last permit. Also, the last permit on the list there is 1825 Harrisburg Pike. That's the Appalachian Hotel. So it's nice to see somebody spending over $1 million there. They're renovating the entire hotel to upgrade it.
Is that next to the Middlesex Diner?
Right behind it, yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Codes enforcement, Jerry?
You take mine, Director.
Is there anything we can tell the public about the diamond at this point, or?
The solicitor,
I sent a letter this morning by email to the owner's attorney, advising him that you would want the owners here in a public meeting at the end of July 31st. And at the end of the day, I received an email back from him saying they're going to be traveling, but they'll be glad to come in August. So if you want a meeting scheduled for them to be here in August, I will let them know what date or dates are acceptable to you. So it'd be your first Wednesday in August or your last Friday in August.
I think the sooner the better.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they can face the public and,
I'm sure I'll tell them that in the letter.
municipal authority, anything?
Yeah, well, we're still progressing with the number 2 well, waiting mainly for permitting at this point.
From SRPC,
Yeah.
has not been received yet.
No.
Okay. Roadmaster,
I'm gonna kind of start on Middlebrook Farms. I know Bud's been out doing some inspections there. Marcus stated that they had permit for the last home. I believe they are planning on actually turning those roads over to the township. They're working through that. I believe Cumberland's Reserve is also looking at like phase 1, having that turned over to the township. So we're in the process of doing that. I believe our deadline is August, so they'll have to be here in August to have that deadline done. So we need to submit the liquid fuels by September. So they'll be coming forward. You have my report for the highway. The guys have been out working. Last couple of weeks, we've actually started doing some storm sewer repair. Right now, we're actually in the development there. Cloverleaf Acres there by Sheep, off of Bridge Road, Costa Road. Some inlets in there that were beginning to fail, so they're replacing inlets and actually replacing some older metal storm sewer pipes, converting them over to plastic pipes. Also, we've begun working on putting a list of interested individuals. Actually, we put something on Facebook or something on our website looking for individuals that may be interested in serving on the steering committee for our comprehensive plan update. I'll present that list to you guys then, hopefully here in a couple of weeks, that you can review that, and then we can make some decisions on putting the steering committee together. I know Dean Severson from HRG is looking forward to getting that started. He actually plans on doing a kickoff event here, try to correlate it with one of our events. We have National Night Out, but I don't know if we'll be able to make National Night Out. But then we have our Fall Fest will be coming up in September, so you may try to coordinate something there and actually kick off and present the comprehensive plan. Beginning of it, you begin to get feedback and stuff during one of those events.
okay. Is there any update on what's happening with Elizabeth Way and Stubecca in terms of turning those over to the township?
The last conversation I had with her, which I'll need to reach out to her again, we'll put it back in her court. We're good with her paving phases 2 and 3, which would be Elizabeth and that portion of James. Having those paved and turned over to the township. Again, we cannot put them in for liquid fuels. They don't meet the regulations for liquid fuels. But the township will take care of maintaining them until she completes phase 4 and completes the loop around Rebecca, and then we can turn them into liquid fuels once that's complete. But and I can reach back out to her and try to see if we can get things moving there.
Well, and we have obviously a couple of months here until school starts again. That was an issue with, people on that road having to take children out to the school bus stop on the North Middlesex Road. Is there any chance that the school bus would be able to go back Elizabeth Way and turn around?
Once it's dedicated to township, yeah, they'll be able to go back and turn around.
Okay,
Yeah, because you're a big cost.
okay. I've never been back there. All right, Secretary Treasurer.
I do not have a report from the county tax bureau with it being the first of the month. She typically does not get that report to me, so as soon as I get it, I will email it to all of you. And then the only other thing I have in there would be the, for the month of June, the general fund report. So unless you have any questions on that.
And I know we talked before the last meeting about the local services tax, that people pay when they, for the privilege of working in your municipality. And I know that's a little bit of a sticky situation, and I just let the public know that we're continuing to work on this and try to figure this out. If the PAX 1 project moves forward, then there could be 1,000 or 1,500 workers, and some of those people may be being here for weeks or months and utilizing township roads. It'd be nice to the township to get some of that local services tax. So we are trying to figure that out. And Parks and Rec.
You can take Lisa's report to record as well as the one Scott does this one, right? Scott Shirley, the park maintenance. What did I say? Scott Scheffler, I'm sorry. Said the wrong name. But yeah, you can take that to record.
Okay, thank you. Unfinished business, there is none. New business, first item, discussion, possible motion on preliminary land development plan for PAX 1 Phase 2. I believe we have the people here to present. And then we will have public comment afterwards as usual. Okay.
Yes.
This is your Courtney and your presentation. We'll do Phase 2 and Phase 1C, we'll present them together, and then we'll have public comment after those are presented together. And again, I would just ask the people that are here just to please allow us to focus and listen to what these people are saying. It's very important for everyone in the audience to hear, and the engineers to hear, and the supervisors to hear, and so please give them your attention.
Okay, as Nick is getting the laptop queued up, so this is a preliminary plan for Phase 2 and a preliminary plan for Phase 1C. So these are both preliminary plans. Phase 2 is a phase that includes data center buildings. This board previously approved Phase 1B, which also included data center buildings. You'll see a lot of similarities in terms of layout and design. A lot of the information that we previously presented is the same information that applies to this plan. There is a list of waivers, modifications, deferrals that are consistent with the prior Phase 1B plan. And so what I will do is we'll be brief. We'll walk through both plans, again orienting everyone as to the phasing nomenclature and phasing areas. So with that, I'll turn it over to Nick.
Thanks, Charlie.
And this is the same presentation you gave to the Planning Commission last week?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, yeah, Mr. Neer, as you said, we're gonna do phase 2 and 1C at the same time. We'll start off with phase 2. Phase 2 preliminary plan, we initially submitted this in November 26th of last year. We most recently received comments on June 8th, and we've also recently addressed and resubmitted county comments on June 1st. And the township was copied on the resubmission to the county. We have some waivers with this plan as well. They're the same waivers we've had on previous plans for the most part. Nothing different than the previous plans, but we can go over those in more detail at the end. So here's the overall plan, overall site, phasing plan. I'll call your attention to the dark purple, which is phase 2, first part of this presentation. Phase 1A is the light blue area. That is the PPL substation and PA data drive portion, which received final approval. The green section to the north of the site is phase 1B, which has preliminary approval. Phase 1C is the yellow down towards Interstate 81, the bottom of the page. That is the second item on the agenda for tonight, and that is the laydown for the construction office trailers. And then phase 3 is light purple, is the third campus that is, I believe, resubmitted a few weeks ago for resubmission. The Conneaut Creek is around the northern boundary of the site. Country Club Road, which is this purple line that bisects the property, and the Interstate 81 here, this light orange near the page south. And then also this purplish shade is the PPL right-of-way transmission line. This is the existing conditions plan. I thought this would be helpful to show. The dark purple is the construction office trailer area that you currently see when you drive down Country Club Road. And then the red boundary is just the phase 2 boundary. Next slide here is the site plan for the campus. You'll see 5 buildings. All the buildings are roughly the same size. They're approximately 156,000 square feet, roughly 200 by 900 dimensions. The blue shapes are stormwater basins. Those are shown blue for illustration purposes to see a little easier, but they are, I'll remind the board that those basins are designed to drain 72 hours or less per PAD EP requirements. The security entrance here near the front, where my cursor's kind of moving around, you can see that access point to the proposed roundabout and PA data drive, and the secondary access here to the rear. You'll see some of the storage water tanks on the site, and also I will note that these tanks, this is preliminary. We'll be working on revising this layout when we get into final, possibly decreasing the number of tanks. That was brought up at the planning commission last week, so I thought it was worth noting.
And there's currently how many on this drawing? Is there
7.
7 tanks?
Yes.
And there are 2.5 million gallons?
Yes. Sizing and number of tanks will likely be revised at the final plan submission.
And can you refresh our memory of the acreage of this phase 2?
It's a good question.
I think 1C is 61 acres.
Yeah, I think this one is, and I might be getting my phases mixed up. I think this is 140, 146 in my head. I think it's this phase. I could find it here in a second.
So I was thinking it was 127.
There's 127 and 140. I might be getting.
I have 141.13 on the zoning table.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Next is the landscape plan. I'll mention these same blue shapes. The stormwater basins will be planted with a wetland seed mix. Some of the hatching around some of the streams and the wetlands, that is riparian buffer enhancements that we're proposing with this with this plan. That's to enhance those areas next to those riparian areas, and now they're farmed right up to the edge of these channels and wetlands. But with this plan, we're proposing to enhance that area by adding trees and plantings and meadow mixes. There's also, you can see there's several trees around the front of the site and throughout the site with evergreen screening trees that will be placed on different landscape berms and such around the front of the site. And also, the green area is either lawn or meadow mix. Most of the lawn areas will be with the interior of the site and the security fence area, and then a lot of the other areas will be planted as meadow mixes.
And as I recall, we talked about the building that's furthest west, that direction at the top, that the generator yard has to be on that side because you can't have it facing the other building because then you'd be taking potentially exhaust into the other building, so you have to have fresh air. And the decision was made to put that generator yard on that side because it's the furthest away from residential areas as opposed to the bottom right, the furthest southeast. That would be closer to current homes.
Correct.
Right?
Yep. All that was correct. So that was for phase 2. We'll come back to the phasing plan, reorient ourselves with the overall site, and we're going to switch it to 1C. 1C is the yellow, which is between Country Club Road and Interstate 81. This plan was initially submitted on April 17th and resubmitted on May 22nd to address township comments. As of recent though, June 8th, had received a few more township comments, and we also resubmitted to the county on June 1st. And like I said, the waivers, there's less waivers on this plan, but they are aligned with the previous plans and waivers that have been approved. Phase 1C site plan, you'll see kind of this hatched area here. This is the approximately 7-acre gravel area for the office trailers. We have the same blue stormwater basins that will be used for stormwater only and will be dewatered within 72 hours or less. The screening berm is along Country Club Road, and there's also a berm with screening along the southern portion of the site next to the PPL right away for the transmission line. This plan doesn't show it, but one of the final comments we received was to provide street trees, and those will be on the next submission to provide street trees. This plan will also, there will be a security fence around the gravel area for security and safety for the laydown area. Can't quite see it on this plan, but it is on the land development plans. And then also make note that the slope here is a 3-to-1 slope. That was a question by the planning commission what that slope was. It is a 3-to-1 slope down from the berm in the screening area. So this next slide is a rendering, conceptual rendering. We had some questions from the planning commission of how this was actually going to look and how this would be built, building a flatter area on the side of the hill. So this reflects approximately what the grades are on the site per plan. I mean, this is a conceptual rendering, but it's fairly close to those grades. You can see the stormwater basins that are empty. You can see the berm with the trees along the rear of the site here to the south, and then also the berm with the street trees along Country Club Road. One of the requests by the Planning Commission, we had also spoke of this earlier before presenting this plan, was there will be a restoration plan provided during the final plan application, and through that discussion, the restoration plan would be back to existing conditions, except for leaving the berms and all of the trees in place. So the fence, the gravel, the driveway, the stormwater basins would be removed. The site would be put back close to the existing slope, but we would allow the berms and trees to stay.
You're calling that a restoration, not a decommissioning plan, but they're sort of the same thing.
Yeah, there's no equipment, but yes, but yeah, we're calling it a restoration plan.
Now, I did read through the county comments in regards to, you know, phase 2 and 1C. You said you just submitted comments back to them. Are those things that would be available for the supervisors? I would like to see your response back to the planning commission if that's permissible.
Yeah, they were submitted on June 1st, and Mark was copied on both those submissions.
Would you forward those to the supervisors, Mark?
Yeah, you want me to print them now?
Well, no, just if you could forward them electronically,
Yeah.
please.
So that was it for phase 1C. Just the last slide here is just community engagement. Mr. Nader, you've been at some of the bi-weekly meetings on site, and we've had those meetings, and you were under you were in the know of those resident meetings were happening through June. I believe all those have been concluded, and the blasting had restarted on June 1st, with approximately 70 days from June 1st, and then also draw your attention to the website here, pax1campus.com, and the QR code for anybody interested to stay up to date on any kind of construction updates and other information on the project.
I think it's helpful to see that rendering of that laydown yard. That's very nice to see. I know we've talked for some time now about getting some sort of 3D imagery for the campus as a whole. When you drive up the hill on Country Club Road, that berm is quite large, which I think is a good thing. With trees on top of that, that will certainly provide a measure of screening. Time will tell how much screening that'll be for the people driving or on that road or living across the street. But I think that was a nice visual for 1C. I know we've talked about this, and it seems like it's coming. It's coming. This sort of rendering of what the campus is going to look like from different vantage points.
I can give you an update on that if you'd like.
Yeah,
So yeah, the next meeting I believe is the next planning commission workshop. The 13th, I believe, is the date. Yeah. So we'll have those to share at that time.
Okay.
It has been some work. I mean, we're in the middle of design, building design, architectural design. So yeah, it's been a work in progress, but I think we're close enough now we can share those.
The one thing that reading through the planning department comments, the one thing that they had mentioned, of course, went back and forth about the Appalachian Trail and View Shed, and I think you were going to have a meeting with them maybe a few weeks ago. I don't know if that meeting happened or what came out of that. Is there anything you can share with the public?
It's ongoing. We've been coordinating with the state and with the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. We're trying to come to an agreement. It's a weekly communication with them, and it's been via the state at this point. But yeah, it's ongoing. That's the only update I can give. There's no resolution yet, But yes, we're working on it. We are eagerly trying to satisfy any of their requests.
Well, I think that's definitely important. And one of the things that the county had mentioned was, what are the roofs going to look like if you're looking from the North Mountain, looking down? They had some recommendations about coloring and contours and things of that sort. I assume in your final development plans, you're trying to incorporate those ideas and concepts.
Yes, and the renderings that we'll present will have that detail. Yes.
Okay. Is that all you have to present?
That's all I have. If you have any other additional questions on phase 2 and 1C.
Yeah, well, and I did read over HRG's comments. You've had some extensive comments on these things. A lot of these things are really quite technical and do seem to mirror phase 1B. And just, I know Bud couldn't be here tonight, our township engineer, but you, Bud, obviously worked closely on this for many, many months now, and just wondered if you had any comments, Mike, about these phases.
Yeah, I can run through our letter a little bit. I probably not will go into every detail of every comment, but I can kind of hit the high points or outline the categories of comments or things we're still looking for. The first one is waivers and modifications, and I'll start with phase 2, since that's the first one we talked about, and I'll roll into phase 1C, although a lot of these are common between the two of them. So both of them have waivers and modifications, and I agree with Nick's statement that most of these are waivers and modifications, same sections that were considered in prior phases, so a lot of the same issues. And a lot of these are things that, like plan scale, for example, that just due to the size and, of the project, it makes sense to allow some a different plan scale. With regard to zoning, we really don't have much at this point. We're looking for some additional detail and clarification on slopes and grades related to ADA parking and access to the building. And then also the other side of that is runoff and drainage and making sure that all that works okay. But there's really only a couple of those, and for a project this size, that's not unusual. When it comes to subdivision and land development, we're looking for a completed PADEP sewage module, and there are a couple of waivers associated there. We're also looking for a certification from the geotechnical engineer, which I see on phase 1B has been provided in the final plan. I think we'd be okay with providing that in the final plan, as long as it's provided eventually for the plan to be reported. Stormwater management, we have had a number of comments. This is probably our biggest category of comments that we've had on all of the plans. But I think Libic has, with each subsequent submission, kind of made corrections based on prior comments, so that list has gotten shorter each time. At this point on phase 2, we're down to a pretty short list on stormwater management, which is really, for the most part, outside agencies approvals, like County Conservation District approving the NPDS permit, and some of the waivers. There's a little comment, a clarification item on one of the profiles, but that's probably just a CAD issue. For both of these, one significant issue that we need to work through is the timing of the Country Club roadway improvements. 3 of these phases, so let me back up. 4 phases have frontage on the Country Club Road and have to improve Country Club Road in association with those phases. One of them is 1A. That's been reviewed. Bud and I have reviewed it as part of the approved plan, and bonding for that part of Country Club Road is in the developer's agreement that Keith and Charlie are working on. We need to figure out the sequence of events for the remainder, because we understand that the developer probably wants to do it all at once instead of like 3 piecemeal little short segments, and we think that makes sense. But we want to make sure that it happens early in the process. If they want to do more work than they're required to, sooner than they're required to, no problem. If they want to delay work or do it later than they would be required to, then that could be a problem. So we're working through that, the logistics, but I think that overarching philosophy, Libic's agreeable to. But that's still one of the issues that's kind of unresolved that we need to get figured out for both of these plans that are up tonight. Other than that, we just have some items to be included in the developer's agreement, some items to be addressed in the final plan, but again, this is a preliminary plan, so that's just kind of an advisory note more so than a hard and fast requirement. So that's where we are with phase 2. Let me switch over to 1C, and I'll try not to be too redundant, because a lot of these are the same. So let me pull up my phase 1C letter, and I'll walk through that as well. So for 1C, again, a series of waivers and modifications, a lot of the same material that we talked about in prior projects. No new or different sections being requested for a modification in 1C. With regard to zoning, we did have a little bit of a question about what the use is exactly in phase 1C, whether it's a job site trailer or an outdoor storage, or there are a few others in the definitions of the zoning ordinance that, you know, maybe this touches on one or the other. We did get a determination from Mark as the zoning officer that this is a trailer laydown yards. A temporary construction site trailer is the definition of the zoning ordinance. And so that gives us clarity on which standards apply. Street trees were mentioned, so that's a note that's outstanding. Subdivision and land development, we have some modifications, same kind of stuff that we had previously. We need the driveway to be paved for a distance of 50 feet back from the roadway. It can't be an all gravel driveway. The last 50 feet have to be paved. There's a question about a couple of plan sheets that appear to be duplicated or numbered incorrectly in the plan set. Stormwater management, again, similar to before, we need the MPDS permit. There are a couple of waivers and modifications related to stormwater that are the same as prior plans. And then we have a couple of detailed questions about one particular drainage structure is inconsistent between the plan and the profile. There's an outlet detail that appears to be inconsistent, an elevation in two different places. But this is pretty minor, kind of plan cleanup sort of stuff. And that we need verification that the MRC concept for this site was accepted, which would come via the approval of the MPDS permit. That would signify to us that DEP had accepted that concept. Same discussion as with phase 2 with regard to the timing and logistics of Country Club roadway improvements and making sure that we have an agreement in place to make that work properly. A few items to be included in the developer's agreement, which are really just kind of updates to the precedents that we've set in 1A. We want to continue to update those with each subsequent phase. And then we have some items to be addressed in the final plan, but again, this isn't the final plan. So that's generally speaking where we're at with the engineering review. I'm happy to talk about any more of those in detail. That's kind of the overview.
And we have no issue or anything with any of the comments. In fact, I think we've addressed all of them, just waiting to resubmit till we get through planning commission and board of supervisors. So yeah.
Just in terms of a timeline, do you have a sense for, obviously these are preliminary plans, do you have a sense for when you would be ready to present final land development plan for these phases?
I think our intent is to present after this approval, so next month, probably present the next time where we can. I know 1C is possibly a little more important for to be able to construct the laydown yard. Phase 2 is also important, but getting approval in phase 2 is kind of could be a critical path as well for some of the off-site infrastructure that we'll be traversing through phase 2. So we're likely going to come back next month and we'll submit next month for or submit this month after we later this month to meet the deadline to present next month on August planning commission meeting is our intent and the schedule we shared with the township.
The one question that had come up, it's been another month now, I guess it was last month, maybe it was the June 3rd meeting, when we did the preliminary land development approval for phase 1B. There was some question brought up about the EIA that was done, and it was done by your firm, and some residents had concerns that maybe that was a conflict. Courtney thought it was not, we talked about, well, how long would it take to get another independent, and Mike said, well, this would take months. And I guess my question is, assuming this project moves forward, passes all the legal challenges, again, we respect that process. People have the right to object, and it'll work through the courts. However high it goes is anybody's guess at this point. But again, I'm sort of new to this whole thing. Only been seated here for 6 months now. When's the final? Like when's the final that we say we're like everything has been approved and the master developers agreement has to be executed and signed?
Well, I mean, the master development agreement is essentially done at this point, and that'll be signed even before final plan approval. And then there's some cleanup, development-related stuff that as we get through final, that'll be incorporated into an amendment of that. So it is really with the final plan approvals that's the final. So with the final plan approvals for each of the phases, that's the board's final decision on the plans, and also the board's approval of a development agreement or amendment to a development agreement. So it's really with final plan. Everything that follows after that is more building permit, inspection, administration type of things.
So the planning department had asked about, is there a separate EIA for phase 1C, or is that covered by the initial EIA? Is that correct, Mike?
Yeah, we've asked in the final plans that have been submitted to tell us anything that's new or different from the EIA that was submitted in the preliminary plan. And we did get a bullet list on, I believe it was 1B, which is currently pending, it's under review for final. And they kind of spelled out a couple of things where more information had been available or more precise information versus the preliminary. So we are looking to update that as we go, just to keep it current. But it's not, the ordinance doesn't require a redo with each one of those subsequent submissions.
Yeah, we're happy to update that as Mike suggested.
Well, and I guess what I'm thinking, is there an opportunity here for us to get an independent EIA from somebody that's not associated with the project?
Well, in every land development plan, there is a submission that's made by a representative of the developer. Doesn't matter whether it's traffic or stormwater or whatever, right? All of those things are done, they're packaged up, and they're submitted. So when you say independent, right, the independence comes in the township's review, right? None of these documents are submitted on one side of the basis that this is what's submitted and that's what you're stuck with. That's the review process, and we've had that. I mean, we've submitted that the end of last summer, and it's been under multiple reviews. That is the process. That is the independence. The independence is built in on the township side in the review of the actual documents that are submitted.
I assume there's some independence with the county conservation district, the planning
100%.
department,
100%.
the PADEP.
Yes. There's multiple levels of independence that is built into any land development plan approval process. And that, to a large extent, is the role of the various agencies, whether it's local or state or other.
The one thing I've been communicating with the solicitor and the engineers, and primarily Bud, is the board of supervisors are going to have to sign off on this master development agreement. I think that will have a lot of elements that's going to be very important for the residents of the township. Ongoing monitoring of noise, ongoing monitoring, just all the things that come up at these meetings. Obviously stormwater management, the operations and management moving forward, the trees, the survival of the trees, the road, all these things. And some of the things that seem to be talked about in that MDA, are things that, obviously make sense, but maybe in my mind don't quite go far enough. So I've been just sort of talking with Bud and the solicitor about things that, as we move forward and we get close, they'll present this to the board of supervisors, and then you would be amenable to, adding or adjusting to that moving forward. Is that correct?
Yeah, so just so we're clear, so we have a master development agreement that we've been working on, and that was intended to be done in connection with preliminary plan, because work is happening out there. The township, even though a developer in Pennsylvania is allowed to start work without providing any financial security, the township, rightly so, wants the financial security, and we're happy to providing that. So there is a master developer agreement that is dealing with, I would think, two things. One is the traditional inspection, security for improvements, right, required improvements, And then the road improvements to Country Club Road. That's the initial version of the master development agreement. It also requires that, that the specific development issues that we've been talking about, things like noise and post-construction sound studies, and all of the things that you just mentioned, well inspections, well repairs, et cetera. All of those things would be incorporated in an amendment to that prior to final plan approval of any plan. The reason we're doing that is by the time we get to move into final plan and the final plan is ready for approval, we'll have all of the as refined as it's ever going to be as to sound and all of the other issues, and we'll incorporate that in there. The initial version or the initial master developers agreement requires that those items be incorporated into an amendment to the master development agreement that is done in connection with final plan approval. Just so we're not missing anything. That is in addition to the fact that the board can impose a condition anyways in connection with final plan approval. But we're going to head it off. We're going to have the initial master development agreement dealing with the financial security in Country Club Road, and then with final plan approval, have all of the details that you're talking about with respect to very specific development topics fully addressed in the development agreement and provided to the township for review and approval.
And that's going to include wells?
Correct. Yep.
Again, I spent some time, reviewing all your comments and the county planning comments. Again, it seems somewhat repetitive of 1B. It doesn't seem like there's really anything significantly different. And again, you don't really have any other outstanding concerns other than the things you already mentioned?
No, really, everything we have at this point is contained in our letters.
Okay. Okay, and again, Mark, you just electronically forward the Libic's response to the county planning to us so we can review that. And then we'll, do you have any questions before we open up to public comment?
All my questions have been answered.
Okay.
I had a couple things.
Go ahead.
So it's just related to some draft motions that I worked on for you guys. And Charlie had, Charlie had pointed out, I tried to identify all the motions that were required that came up and were discussed at the planning commission. So on phase 2, Charlie said about adding a deferral, but actually that's number 7 on that list, Charlie.
Oh, it is?
It's already there at the bottom,
Okay.
right beside where you wrote that. So I don't see any new waivers on phase 2.
We were reviewing it quickly in the back. Okay,
Yeah,
so that's good.
They
Yep.
did this quickly. And then on the motion for waivers and deferrals on phase 1C, subdivision section, SALDO section 707, they had requested. In discussion at the planning commission, it was determined this was not necessary because this requires you to install sidewalk and pedestrian paths with required note on the plan for new interior streets. There's no new interior streets on phase 1C, simply a temporary construction trail or lot. Charlie pointed out two other.
So it's not applicable is what you're saying?
It's not necessary.
Okay.
707.
Yep.
So Charlie pointed out two others that I believe I did miss. So that would be SALDO section 501C19. That's a deferral until final for required meets and bounds description of the easements. Even if you just write down SALDO section 501C19. That's what it is. And then the other one.
C19?
Yes, C19. Which is actually listed on the phase 2 memo. I mean, it's listed on there. But this is for 1C, phase 1C. So on phase 1C motion. So it would be 501C19. And then the second one that was missed was SWMO, Stormwater Management Ordinance, section 303H17. This has to do with geotechnical certification of the managed release cells. There are managed release cells then on phase 1C, Nick?
Yes.
Okay, and I had missed that, so again, the second section would be SWMO 303H17, which is one that's also listed on the other plan. So we have two additional waivers and deferrals. That's it.
So that's number 11 under phase 2.
Phase 1C, yeah. Yeah, that's right. It's the same. See, number 11?
Yep.
Yeah, that's at H17, yep. Nick, Mike, does that sound like we're on the target?
Yeah, it does. I think we'd identified both of those in our letter, although I'll admit, you organized them better than we did. If we don't have an issue with either of those, in fact, both of those are consistent with waivers and modifications from prior plans.
That's it, Bill, from me, thanks.
Okay. You know, it's interesting, because a lot of us are watering, gardens and flowers and things. And when it's dry like this and the ground's hard, it's interesting, you just see the water just sort of runs off. And, having lived here my whole life and knowing, that topography of that field, I would assume that when that field this time of year, when it was planted and the crops were fairly young, is there was probably a lot of runoff into the Conneaut Gwinnett. And I know you stated that the impervious coverage of your whole site is under 20%. I think that something that may actually be beneficial with stormwater management is that we'll have less runoff into the Conneaut Gwinnett than what we had previously. I'm not an engineer. I'm just a simple guy that just waters my garden and waters my flowers, and you just see what happens. And I have talked to Mike Levinsky, a professional engineer from conservation. I've talked to the DEP engineers about stormwater management, in regards to this project. And I think everyone, I certainly feel very confident, and the engineers feel very comfortable with the way the stormwater management has been laid out. All right, let's open it up to public comment. Again, you have 3 minutes. Well, the public, we can have some public comment before we decide to vote on this. And so again, your name, address, you have your 3 minutes. We're not ceding time.
Is this on? Okay. Robin Edley, 63 Beagle Club Road. I'm also a member of the Planning Commission. Nick, I would like to thank you for bringing up some of the comments that were discussed at your presentation with the Planning Commission. And then I also would like to determine if, I guess, Zach or our draft minutes and comments from the Planning Commission given to the Board of Supervisors prior to this meeting for their review.
Yes.
Yes.
So you have that
I
information.
reviewed them. And I did speak with Jim a couple days after the meeting, because I was not able to be here on that Monday. And I did speak to Jim Gear about the items that were raised at the meeting. So I just wanted to get a first-hand impression as to what had happened.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And I wanted to review them quickly, just so Don understands also. So on the phase 2 plan, the Planning Commission recommended that natural gas service be added to the project as a fuel source for the generators. This was a suggestion from the other Planning Commission. So that was one thing that came out. I forgot to mention that. And the second thing was on the 1C plan, the Planning Commission suggested that the phase 1C property be returned to original condition as much as possible after the temporary use. And that's actually the last condition of approval for phase 1C. that a note be added to the plan indicating that when the temporary construction site trailer use on tax phase 1C is no longer needed, the site will be returned to original grades, original topography, which with meadow conditions, except for areas with established berm buffers for screening and landscape screenings, and that the language of the note would be reviewed and be acceptable to the township engineer, subject to his final review. Planning Commission also had another suggestion regarding 1C, the storage lot. They thought that maybe it would benefit the community to consider having that used if the developer wanted to for some community purpose like recreational ball fields. I did not add that into the condition, but I wanted the supervisors to know that that was a condition. I think this is something that could be worked out later as an amendment to any approval given. Once we see if the developer's interested and we see what kind of use that might be in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. And certainly something I've brought up to the developers on numerous occasions when you're done with that, to turn that over to the township and its residents, for another use. But that's, again, the rest of it is things we'll take under advisement with final land development. Next.
Hi, Beth Labor, 3T Berry Drive. That was going to be part of my question about 1C. Is there a restriction on what will happen to that after the construction's done that will be built into that master or construction plan or management plan to ensure that it doesn't get sold to somebody else and be used for other purposes outside of the data center? So it sounds like that is on your radar to be checked.
Yes.
And then pertaining to the trees that we're talking about, the street trees and that, are we gonna be thinking these are mature trees, that's something that's not gonna take 20 years to be of any benefit to be a screening? Is that part of that master plan as well? And who maintains them if there's damage from storms or they die of disease or blight?
The ordinance requirement for street trees, I don't have it memorized, but I think it's something like a 2 to a 3 inch caliber. So it's diameter, and it's usually measured at about 4 or 5 feet off the ground. So they wouldn't be, whips, but they wouldn't be mature trees either.
And there's maintenance security, right?
And do they have to be would they be a pine tree that provides more coverage, or are they just like a maple tree, or?
I think that the requirement of the ordinance, it lays out species that are and aren't acceptable. And I want to say they have to be native species, but I don't know if it's specific to deciduous versus evergreen.
It is native.
So the species are on the plan, and these trees would be bonded or with financial security to make sure they're planted and that they grow and live.
Okay, so then if they sell this to other, entities, they have to take that as part of their maintenance. Okay.
Right, and I'm pretty sure I read it again today, it was 2.5 inches in diameter, 6 feet from the base.
Diameter breast height at your chest level.
Yeah. And the county comment was that we should have a minimum of 5 years of financial security to make sure that the trees do live past their infancy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Kelly Bricky, 5 Elizabeth Way. There's been a lot of focus on the number of generators that are going to be utilized in this project. And I think the last number that I heard was something like the 530 range. I don't recall in any of the meetings anyone mentioning the number of the rooftop cooling units that will be required, that also generate noise as well as heat.
Well, again, my understanding is we're not going to have rooftop cooling. That this is evaporative cooling for much of the year. It's, if you want to call it a hybrid system, it'll be cooled by the outside air, which will hopefully be a lot cooler than it is today. But then the 2 buildings in 1B, kind of the older style buildings that are being built because of at least what we were told was, lack of availability of proper equipment to build that those would be the first two buildings, and that those would have rooftop air conditioning units, so to speak. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
And can you tell us how many, or we're not certain because we're not in final design yet?
We're still, no, that's a building permit, so that would come with a building permit submission. It's coming soon that Mark will receive, so that little detail will be the building permits in the architecturals. Yeah, I don't have that. That's the architect and the engineers. Yeah.
But it was
Yeah,
included in the noise study, so
Yes,
they would
yes,
be.
yes, it was included in the noise study.
Yeah, and I think there's obviously a lot of interest in the generators. That's really not going to be information that's available until final land development, and it's all going to fall under the DEP guidance because they'll be given a permit, and they'll submit that to DEP. The DEP will let them know, how many hours each generator can run in a year. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Roberta Kreifel, and I live at 69 Sassafras Lane.
Sorry, what was your last name? I'm sorry.
Kreifel, K-R-I-V-E-L-L. And I live right across the creek, kind of like one of the first houses right across the creek. So a lot of what's going on is affecting me a lot. And I found some correspondence that was presented through a Right to Know Act with one of my neighbors, and that the blast schedule was intentionally held from the residents. And because you didn't want, I guess, us to have any say or get angry about it. And I just wanted that noted, that was found in the Right to Know. And I resent that because I'm really close to it, and it scared a lot of us when it first happened because we didn't know. And I feel like the lack of public meetings about this project, especially for people that we don't get any electronic copies of a lot of these documents. We have to do Right to Know. There's no staff reports. There's nothing we can look at, and even when we come to a meeting. I mean, we don't get any of the copy of the correspondence that the contractor provides. Even I've gone to 2 planning commission meetings, so I used to work for a city in California. We used to have all that available, uploaded as part of the agenda packet. So it's hard for us because we feel like we're learning after the fact everything. And I just wanted it noted that should have let us know, should have had a couple public meetings to let us know more about the project. And one of the things I was concerned about too was the 3D mapping. And I kind of wonder why we haven't seen a 3D rendering of this whole thing. It doesn't have to be exact, but I kind of feel like we want to hide what it's going to actually look like after it's done. And I also was wondering too if there's a decommission plan in place after, because technology changes. If any state knows about industrial waste, it should be Pennsylvania. I mean, technology's changing as they're building this, and who knows what it's going to be when they're done. And I do have a concern about the diesel testing plan. I was reading how you're going to allow them to, they have like 532 diesel generators, and they all have to be tested, I think, every month or every other month. And that you're going to allow them to test it from Monday through Saturday. So that means when you live in the area, you're going to hear diesel testing like every day of the week, but Sunday and national holidays. And that's going to be on top of the data center noise. That's not going to be very much fun to live around. And I guess what I'm calling a flood plan is what you're calling stormwater. I don't know if you saw what happened in West Virginia due to a data center being built. It just actually recently flooded out a whole neighborhood because of lack of proper water control. And like I say, I live on the other side of the creek, and when we had a lot of rainwater, that actually did flood into because I live right above the flood basin there. And it does concern me because if it isn't set up right, there's a big possibility for flooding if we have a major storm, because there's nowhere for the water to go anymore like it used to. And another quick question is, I know my time is over, is if there's any way we could get these like on live streamed meetings? Yeah. Just was wondering.
This is something we've been talking about. Obviously, we're trying to make a lot of advancements in the township, and it takes a little bit of time to come to consensus on some of these things. I think we've made some progress, and I think, you know, having these meetings available, whether it's live streamed or with the audio, is certainly something I think we're strongly looking at. I can't give you a timeline on that, but I certainly would like to, I personally would like to see that happen sometime in the not too distant future.
Yeah, and I just want you to really, when you're talking to all these people in these plans, really think there's real people here, out here, going through this, and we're actually living through the blast, getting text messages and through this, that, and the noise, just the constant beeping, beep, beep, beep all day long that we hear, that we're all real people and we're going through this construction, and it's not fun.
Jody Schibel, 8 Berry Drive in the Meadows. I'm concerned over 1B yet, and what we're doing there as far as the buildings and the rooftops and the generators. I think they are the closest properties, closest buildings to people's property along there. I would say the trailer park, I'm not exactly sure the location for Country Manor West, but there is the Meadows, and then there is, you know, our Meadows part in 8 Berry. So I think they should have the most consideration, if they are the closest, to have the newest things, not something on the rooftops, okay? And I think the generators, however they're set up, because things change and you're not all final yet, is that those generators need to not face the people. They should face the other way. And anything else there that's super noisy, they need to consider, because they are the closest places. It's not a lot of distance between where they are, the creek, and where we are, and it carries there. So that would be my concern about 1B. And then the other thing is, so everybody's looking to the future. In my phone, I was reading that by July 27th, things by the developer or the project manager, things ramp up again. Like you were saying earlier, maybe, I don't know, 1,000 and some people by that point. I think I saw 1,500 to 1,600 was projected when they peak, and eventually that filters down. But that'll be through the project. And the other one was the trucks again. And I saw 500 to 600 a day estimated throughout. So I'm kind of interested in, are we going back to 500 and 600 trucks a day again? Because that was pretty awful for Country Club Road. And it needs to, you know, it's mellowed out, I think. I don't, you know, but we don't want to go back to that again. So toward the roads and everything else. So they would be concerns I'm seeing that in these plans we need to look at. And that's it.
Yeah, and I can tell you, you know, we are sensitive to what you're living through. I don't live there, but I live not too far from Pennsylvania Turnpike. You know, I hear the turnpike. It's less than a third of a mile from my house. I hear it all day long, and I hear it inside my house. So I understand. I'm not living where you're living. I understand that. I understand that Country Club Road is not going to be a good place to live for the next 5 years. I understand that Country Manor West and the Meadows is not going to be a great place to live for the next 5 years.
So why do you guys follow this?
It is a construction site, and they have the ability to construct their facility within the rules and regulations of the state of Pennsylvania and the township of Middlesex.
So again, I would look at 500 trucks a day. That's you know, that was a lot. And when they settled down, everybody settled down. If it's going to happen. And the other one is 1B. Again, we are the closest. We should be considered if this happens. That's it. You know, they need to maybe hold and put the right things in there. I mean, if you're going to be a good neighbor, let's be the good neighbor if this happens. You're going to have a lot less resistance in the end if we have at least something, you know, that is amicable to people. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mark Kurtz, 4 Berry Drive. I'm playing catch up in this process, and I never really understood what was your as the supervisor's rationale for approving the overlay by right. That's a basic question, and I've never seen the justification, and I've looked online.
Right, we talked about this on Friday. I don't think you were at Friday's meeting. You know, there is there's pending litigation against the township. There's 5 families that are appellants in this case that are suing the township. So it's a active litigation that we cannot comment on in a public forum. If it goes to court, you're certainly welcome to go sit in the courthouse and see what they have to say, but we can't comment on pending litigation.
The answer I expected. Thank you.
My question is for Roadmaster. The Country Club Road is regulated for the weight for the truck? You sure that that truck coming with the regular weight that's being supposed to accept in Country Club Road?
Liberty Excavators, who's the excavator, they got a bond placed on the road that they can exceed that weight limit. So that's good.
Who weighs that? You have the balance inside the packs, or when the truck coming or whatever, you have a big weight for the truck?
We do not weigh that. They got a permit to exceed the weight limit.
Oh, okay.
So if the truck.
Whatever they want.
Yeah, when the truck's too heavy, it actually goes to another level. If it's oversized, overweight to a certain point, then they actually need a permit from the PennDOT or the state.
All the time, Pax One have a preference for everything what he want to do. Because if they have permit for exceed the weight, it's because they have preference. Pax One have preference for everything.
You're up.
Thank you, Mark, thank you for mentioning, that was brought up at the planning commission.
Name and address, please.
Earl Beatty, 303 Country Club Road.
Thank you.
You brought it up about possibly turning over the township for a park or something like that, thank you very much. One of the questions, you had a picture up earlier, you were showing the trees and stuff. Where is the location of the diesel supply for all these generators? Is it above ground tanks? Is it below ground tanks? What is the proposal for this and where's it located?
There's no central diesel storage on site. Every generator has its own respective tank, so there's no central storage on site.
Oh, I'm sorry, at the planning commission, they said they were gonna have a tank with fingers bleeding on each generator.
So I don't know what you heard, but I'm saying, there is no central storage on the site for the diesel fuel. It's a separate
He can answer
tank.
that. So Jim Garrett, 355 on Spring Road, member of the planning commission. What they said was that there would be a fill pipe for each of the 16 buildings that had fingers going out. So the fill pipe, what they mean is the tanker is going to come on site and fill, and he'll fill all the generators at that building, go to the next building, and make 16 stops. There's no on-site bulk storage outside of the self-contained diesel generator tank.
So it's not gonna be a tank, it's just gonna be underground lines, they fill the lines.
I don't know if they're, they didn't say whether they're under or over. My guess would be they're over, but they have to comment.
Okay, second question is, what is the height of the dirt berm that you put along 303 Country Club Road? Because let's say the north, south, east end, it's extremely high. As you go down towards like the fence where the gates are, it keeps getting lower and lower and lower. And yesterday they blew some kind of, one question what they blew on or what kind of grass or what did they actually blow? But why is the berm so high at this end you can't see anywhere? You can't see the mountain, I mean you can't see nothing.
So the berm per plan was approximately 12 feet in height from the edge of Country Club Road. It does get a little higher depending where you're standing on the site. If you're at the bottom, if you're at the lower portion towards the entrance, it's going to be higher than that because of the existing grade. The berm, but we did have it as built by the contractor. It's a little higher than the plan proposes, but and then as far as the material, I'm going to speculate that was probably a hydro seed to stabilize. They have to stabilize any open open unstabilized ground within so many days of leaving that work area.
Well, if it's supposed to be 12 feet high, I kind of suppose, I'm not real stupid, so I just know you're not there. That berm is tremendously higher than 12 feet at the end up there. So why can't you go back and put it back to 12 feet so that I can at least look out my house and look? If it's supposed to be, if the plan's called for 12 feet, it's not 12 feet. Good measure.
It's high enough, let me just say, outside of my direct window, just so you know, I live in a second story
Can
home.
we, you will have your chance to speak. We're not speaking out from the audience. Mark, is there anything with zoning that would control this if it's higher than the berm was supposed to be based on the plans?
It's not zoning, it'd be under the subdivision ordinance and the bonding for improvements. Mike, do you have any comment?
Maybe this is a question for Nick, is the area that we're talking about here, the berm, but the height is incorrect and needs to be adjusted, or is this a temporary stockpile for topsoil?
They're constructing the berm as they do earthwork, and it did come to my attention, it was a few feet higher than what the plan shows. Our direction was, to create berm with screening, along the Country Club Road if it needs to be pulled back to the 12 feet per plan, because it's not, nobody wants it that high. We're more than happy to take that back to the development contractor. But yeah, it is a temporary condition like that.
But I think ultimately, if the plan says 12 feet, it ought to be 12 feet. It should be what the approved plan says at the end of the day. If it's a temporary stockpile, the E&S regulations, I think, allow you to go to 25 feet for a temporary topsoil stockpile, which is why I asked the question. We should make this an agenda item for the next construction site meeting, make sure we get a path forward.
Well, thank you, because it's not temporary, because they wouldn't spend a day out there grading that thing, then have guys out there with a rake, then hire to seed it hours later.
Well, I do agree with Nick that they are required to stabilize any exposed soil that's going to be left there for any period of time, even if it's a temporary stockpile. If it's temporary, it would last a month or two. They still need to grow at least like an annual rye on it to hold it in place. So that doesn't necessarily mean that it's permanent, but one way or the other, I think we need to get it right to what the permanent condition is.
Okay, thanks.
Kyle Gerber, 585 Burnhessel Bridge Road. I don't think that most people still appreciate the scale of this project. We're talking about the buildings, we're talking 16 of them, which are 900 feet long, 200 feet wide, and 80 feet tall. They're really big. And you can't really get a sense of that from a 2D rendering. So SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office, has concluded that this plan, not might, but will have an adverse effect on the Appalachian Trail. And remember, the Appalachian Trail is a nationally registered historic site. So SHPO said in its January 23rd letter, they found that the project, quote, will have an adverse effect on the Appalachian Trail viewshed by obscuring views of open space that contribute to the significance of the resource. And my question quick for the board is, have you guys seen that determination from SHPO?
I have not seen, I know SHPO opined on the farmhouses that were on the property. I have not seen that. I'm sure you've obviously walked the trail many times because it's right near your road. I just did hike that a few weeks ago, and that's got to be the worst section of the Appalachian Trail, in Cumberland County, because you go over that Burnhessel Bridge Road, the bridge, it's really extensive. The noise from 81 is deafening, and then you go past the substation. We talk about a view shed. It's terrible. And I think that they are working with ATC. They said they've been working with ATC. They got a call from the governor's office. The governor, what's called First Lady, would hike the trail a few weeks ago. With a number of people that went with her, including people from the ATC. And so the governor's office has reached out to the developer and say, you really need to work with them. And so I think they've changed gears a little bit. I don't think it's going to change the size and scale of the project, but they're at least working with the ATC now in a more collaborative fashion to try to address some of their concerns to
Yeah.
an extent.
Yeah, I agree with you that the view shed is already compromised, and that's why I prefer to not see it further degraded. But my understanding is, like, as you said, the Appalachian Trail has reached out to Living and asked for these 3D renderings from specifically the Byrne High School intersect vantage point, as well as the one up on the mountain. And they have not yet received them from them. And as you just said, Phil, tonight, the board hasn't seen these three-dimensional renderings either. And that segues into my second question, which is that in 2008, Pennsylvania passed the Appalachian Trail Act, Act number 24, which requires that every municipality that the trail crosses, which includes Middlesex, is to, quote, preserve the natural, scenic, historic, and aesthetic values of the trail, and to conserve and maintain it as a public natural resource. Like, that's the same language that's in the Environmental Rights Amendment. And Middlesex, and you as the board, even acknowledge that duty because you have established the Appalachian Trail Conservation District in our own zoning ordinance. So my question to you is, how can you, like, in good conscience, and just practically carry out that duty if you have not seen the view shed effects? If you don't know what it's going to look like. Like, you've requested them from the developer and they failed to present them to you. How can you effectively do your job if they have not given you the part of the resources to do that? Well, my question, I mean, how do you think you can do that job?
Well, they're going to give us renderings at the next meeting, and we'll see what things look like from the different viewpoints.
And that's great.
Yeah.
But I guess I would follow that up then with saying, it's my last thing. If they haven't given you the renderings yet, and they haven't given you all the resources you need to effectively steward, do your job and steward something that's been entrusted to you by the state, they should not be asking you for preliminary approval tonight. They should be asking for an extension so that they can get their resources together to give to you.
Thank you. Mark, can you give us the timeline for approvals? You know, there's always, you know, the clock sets when someone submits a plan. And can you give us for phase 2 and phase 1C, what the timeline
Yes,
is?
these two plans are up for a decision by the Board of Supervisors today, July 1st, 2026.
And if we ask for an extension, you know, as we did with 1B, which you declined, I'm assuming, Mr. Courtney, the answer would be the same if we asked for an extension on phase 2 and phase 1C?
That's correct.
Okay. And if the board does not vote or act on this, then the plan gets approved, whether we vote on it or not. Am I correct, Solicitor? Right. It's a lack of vote is deemed approval by the Wisconsin Planning Code. That's state law.
Oh, no.
Okay, next.
Yeah. Michelle DeNovo, Fieldstone Drive. So why did Charlie Courtney specifically mention wells in relation to the final plan? Are they planning to repair and operationalize the wells?
Well, I'll say why I mentioned wells, because in prior meetings, including supervisor meetings, there was discussion about our willingness to test and repair wells that are impacted by the project. So that is why it's not anything that's required by ordinances. It's something that the developer is willing to do. So it doesn't have anything to relate to doing anything on site well-wise. In fact, per condition of the Phase 1B plan, per I would imagine condition to any other plan, there'll be a restrictive covenant put in place that prohibits the establishment of wells on the property. So when I reference wells, it's for the benefit of the residents.
Yes. Thank you.
If they want it, they don't have to. If they don't want it, they don't have to receive it.
The well note that Charlie mentioned is on the subdivision plan, so no new wells on the site.
Okay.
This is getting exhausting. Frank Labator, 19 West Monroe, Mulberry Hill Road. Just want to reiterate a couple of things. One of them is the lack of 3D rendering of this whole project. I've been retired for 8 years. So we built companies before, we made all kinds of systems, huge, $40 million systems. Took up a lot of land, a lot of property. There was always a 3D developed along the way. Even though they haven't presented it yet, they should be able to give you an updated version as they go along. And what I'm hearing is nobody's seen any rendering of 3D of what that's going to look like. And I think the feedback I've been getting is the people in the meadows and other places nearby don't have a clue what that's going to look like because all they see is flat plans of the view. Now, one more question for you. Has anybody on the board been to a similar size data center at all? Seen the size of it in any area of the nation?
I know both myself and Supervisor Gutzweit went down to Ashburn, Virginia, called Data Center Alley. There's over 200 data centers there. They're mostly smaller data centers, but they're all clustered together in one after another after another. And this was a tour that was provided to us by Powerhouse. They did take us by an older unit to start with, and there's definitely noise from the older units where there's air conditioning on the roof. The other units were incredibly quiet. And a lot of homes and businesses right across the street and new construction right across the street from large 80-foot high data centers.
Plus there was that big development, Phil, remember, in the midst of.
Yeah, so it's in a very, obviously a densely populated area, so I don't like to compare Northern Virginia to Middlesex Township necessarily, but yes, the answer to your question, we were there.
One more. What will happen to this massive site? If technology advances so much that everything starts shrinking down, we don't need these big, huge buildings to do the same, the same type of system. It happened with computers, for years. What's going to happen with AI technology and data centers and everything? What's going to happen with that huge area of concrete buildings? Has that been discussed? That's my last point.
Thank you. It has been discussed, and they do have a decommissioning plan, so to speak, to take out the electronics, which are required by DEP, to remove all that, to remove the generators, diesel, fuel, anything that's a potential toxin. There is, I would say, probably virtually impossible to return that site to farmland. And I don't believe we have, other than solar in the township. And cell towers. There's nothing in the ordinance that they have to be decommissioned, and that's, I think, the way it is across the state. I know there's been talk about, well, we're going to just, tear up the buildings, we're going to tear out the cement, and can you imagine we're talking, Mr. Gerber said, the size of these buildings, they don't think they could probably be repurposed. All the electronics will have to be taken out based on Pennsylvania state DEP regulations. The idea would be that the buildings would be repurposed for some other use. Who knows, housing, I'm not sure.
What is the,
Okay, thank you.
Country Club Road. We've already covered the topic of well, so I think it was, the context wasn't there whenever when we heard the well, so I do appreciate the offer to do the testing, that's great. Mark, I wanted to double check with you the hours of construction in our ordinances right now.
We have no listed hours of construction in our ordinances now.
So they can do construction 24 hours a day? question.
Yeah, I don't have any answer. We don't have an ordinance with hours of construction.
Okay, thank you.
There's laws about disturbing the peace, so I don't think it's to see construction at night.
Mr. Hess, it would be very helpful if when people are responding, the 3 minutes is my time to speak and not time to have responses back. So if we could pause that timer, that would be helpful. You got that, Zach? Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I just wanted to make sure we're covering that. I wanted to come back around to the last meeting that I was at. I missed the very last one, but the one before that. We talked about the lights on the buildings currently right now that are out there on the trailers. They are not covered. They're certainly not dark sky zoned at the moment. So just wondering if we had any follow-up on that, as far as is there going to be any coverage on the lights that are currently out there on the buildings? And if so, that would be helpful. And if not, on the new section, they have coming with 1C, they gave the design tonight. How many buildings are going to be on there, and will there be additional construction stuff out there? Or is it just going to, I heard buildings tonight, so I wanted to seek clarification on that, please.
This is the first time I've heard about lighting on the trailers on the site, so I appreciate you bringing that up. Obviously, we have people here who can address that. I know, we've asked for you to be dark sky compliant. I know you're working with PPL to make them dark sky compliant, and I think it's important that during construction that we try to be compliant and not bother the neighbors with lighting that could be shielded and facing downward unless there's a security issue.
I can address that if you'd like.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this was brought up at the planning commission meeting last Monday. So the next day we talked to the powerhouse and we talked with Whiting Turner, the contractor. There had been some light towers, temporary light towers. They've been removed from the site, as I was told as recently as today again. There is a few lights on I think the doorways to a few of the office trailers, and there might be a few wall packs on the office trailers, and they've set those to motion detection only for security and safety reasons only. So there should not be any lights. If there is, we definitely want to know, and I'll take it to the contractor, because as of today, they said there shouldn't be any lights coming on, unless they're motion activated, of course. There should not be any bright light towers, nothing like that.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to double check. We heard so much about so many jobs being created with this, and wanted to find out, do we currently have all local companies working on everything that has to do with PAC Swarm? We do not have any out-of-state contractors working on this project.
No, I think it's probably impossible to have everyone be local. We do the Whiting Turner on-site visits every other week, and they're running, 80 to 85% of workers. I think it's within a 50-mile radius. So they're trying to use local people as much as they can. Obviously, Maine Blasting their headquarters is in Maine, but they have offices up and down the Mid-Atlantic. And the people that you met, I assume you went to one of the meetings. I was there, not the one you went to, but the one the following night. And those people they're not necessarily local, but some are more local than others. So I think they're trying, and I think that's important.
I mean, yeah, if we're all being disturbed, I hope so, right? The diesel testing plan we asked about, and we were told specifically we would not be given a plan on diesel testing. So I would like to know what the number of generators that we were given the last time, about 500, how is that not going to be done? Literally, the testing of the generators, Monday through Saturday, 12 or 13 hours a day. Because when you do the math, if they're testing them for 30 minutes, and all of them has to be tested every month, that's 13 and a half hours per day, more than 20 days a month.
So that's, if you do the math, and I spent an hour or two going through this, I think what you're calculating is you're calculating every generator running by itself. They'll run it in a bank. So you may have 20 generators running at a time for 30 minutes. So you may have days, and again, the run schedule is not under the township control. I understand it's a hot issue, and I understand why it's a hot issue in terms of emissions and noise. But I think the math that's been presented here is wrong, that if you have a bank of generators running together, you may only have 30 to 60 minutes of generators running all together in a single day.
That's good to know, but are they gonna actually provide information that is shared with us? I'm not asking for a
Right.
schedule, but so that we have a better understanding of how this is gonna impact specifically those of us on the road and directly across, right, the creek where that bump out comes and that first build out's happening.
Right. Well, I think that's gonna be important as we get into land development. We have an end user, you know, we'll have a number of generators. You know, we don't know the number of generators. Is it 450? Is it 550? Is it 700? I don't know. We don't know. They'll be given the parameters by DEP. I talked to our regional people from DEP about how these things are permitted, and they'll give them a number, how many hours each generator can run in a year. And the anticipation is based on other data centers that they will actually be far less than what they're permitted to do on an annual basis per generator.
Okay.
But I think that has to be public information somewhere along the road when we have you know, the tenant identified and we have a final plan. That I think that's important because, you know, I think hopefully we will have some say in this, and maybe people say, well, I'd rather run at night. Most people would rather run during the day. You don't want to run on weekends. You don't want to run on holidays. So hopefully that becomes a discussion with the public to allow the residents to have some input when that is ready to be enacted. Okay?
Okay, thank you. I know I'm just about up, so I wanted to also find out, have you guys had an opportunity to study the health information that has come out, health studies on diesel impacts to our air quality in this area specifically, and how that those of us directly impacted across the street are going to be breathing this in for 5 days a week? It is very, very, very ugly at my house. I literally have a migraine all day long when I'm outside. You can say that you understand the challenge unless you live at my house and my neighbors. So we're not going to go there, but I want to know, have you guys actually taken time to study the health effects that this is going to have on us over the next 5 years for the build out, and then additionally impacts that have been quoted and shared throughout the world on what happens when these are stood up, on the noise emission, the diesel emissions, etc. Because if not, happy to share the stuff that I pulled, but I wanted to know specifically, have you guys taken time to actually review any of that information?
I did receive some things from some retired physicians who are friends of mine from the Clean Air Board, and I did forward it to the developer earlier this week about clean air monitoring during construction on large projects. So I have not had a response back from them. They did acknowledge receipt of it, and I'm sure they're reviewing it. It's a lengthy document, and I can't tell you what's going to come out of it.
Understood. And then as far as the berm goes, yeah, it's way above what it's supposed to be. It covers my second story window. I'm just going to say for me right now, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
It breaks the sound barrier. Not only do I get the beep beep beep, but I have the honk honk honk. We have beeping and honking. We have diesel fuel, smells all the day long, and the traffic on the road is crazy. I mean, it's insane already. I can't even imagine how much fun it's going to be when you guys ramp up 100%. This is not okay. It's not. You guys need to vote no.
About the company.
This is not your
No,
turn.
listen.
This is not your.
Talking the truth.
This is not your turn. This is your
Don't
first
say the
warning.
truth.
You cannot talk
What
out of
about
turn.
the company
This is a
Michael
township of 8,000 people. It's not a township
What
of one.
about the Michael
It's not a
Baker?
township of one.
What about
This
the
is your
Michael
first
Baker?
warning. Ms.
It's-
Rosa, this is not your
Listen.
chance to speak.
You know what happened?
Okay,
You know
Mr.
what they
Dembski,
talk
will you
about,
please
about
speak?
the truth. What about
Mr.
Michael
Dembski,
Baker?
this is your turn. Start the 3
The
minutes.
company, Michael Baker Company.
My name is Andrew Dembski. I live at 430 Barnhassel Bridge Road. And my first question is, when would we expect DEP approval on the 72-hour cell release for the stormwater management system?
That'll come in association with their approval of the MPDS permit. So Nick, you probably have the latest information on where they are in the approval process there. But before you do though, 72-hour dewatering time is the statewide standard.
Okay.
Middlesex's requirement of 48 hours is a little bit different than the state standard. The modification that they requested is to default to the 72 statewide standard. So I do expect that DEP will approve it. It's not really an approval, it is their standard already. The other piece that you may be asking about is the MRC basin model, which again is a statewide permitted stormwater management type, but the formal approval of that will come in association with the NVDS permit. And Nick, you may know where exactly that process is there.
Yeah, so we're working on that NPDS, ENS design, post-construction stormwater design. Typically, we like to get through township review. We have a few minor comments to address. So that's what we're waiting to get through the township review and looking to submit that to the conservation district in the next few weeks.
Okay, thank you. My second question is around the cooling units, because the first two buildings, they said they've got the old units because of supply chain issues. What about the next buildings? That there's data centers going up all over the country. There's no guarantee that those high-tech ones will be ready after that. Are there any provisions in place in the developer's agreement to preserve the HVAC designs on buildings 3 on?
Mr. Courtney, is any of those elements in the developer's agreement? I suspect on.
No, that one isn't.
Is there any concern that these, hybrid systems for evaporative cooling will not be available moving forward?
I don't believe so. No. Otherwise, we would be. It would have plant impacts, right?
Yeah.
It would have plant impacts.
Well, because I think if there was a lot of air conditioning units on the roof, they would exceed the 70 dBA at the property line.
That's what I'm worried about, because they're right on the line right now. And, I mean, it's ridiculous to say that you can know that there are supply chain issues coming, because there's an answer on this right now.
There is a little bit of a check and balance on that aspect in the building permit process, where they'll have to submit their detailed HVAC drawings. And if they submit something that is materially different than what's in the land development approval, specifically the noise study aspect of the land development approval, then I think Mark and the building codes folks can kick it back and say, no, you can't build that. That's not part of your sound study. You'd have to amend your sound study, get a new land development approval, et cetera. So there is another catch that we have in the process.
Yeah, we're making, like any other plan, we're making certain assumptions, and those assumptions are based upon what we know to be more readily available. So this plan is based upon the design that's reflected on the plan. If something changes, then something else would have to be done.
Great. So my next question is around the SRBC permit. We talked last time about the project being nested under MTMA's allocation, but on our township zoning ordinance, it's hard-coded in there that they need that permit. And so are they getting a variance for that? It doesn't say unless MTMA is covering you, right?
I'm just trying to find my communication with SRBC, who specifically said any project that's using municipal water does not have to get that permit. It's the consumptive use permit that they'll need. Anybody consuming over 20,000 gallons per day will have to get a permit from the SRBC. They will not need a permit from the SRBC because they're using municipal water.
Okay. Would you mind forwarding that to me?
I'm not sure if I can. You can feel free to reach out to SRBC yourself. Our local person is Michael Appleby.
Michael Appleby?
Yeah, and Michael Appleby is the person who deals with our region, and I would assume that he would be happy to talk to you about this.
That's great. The root of the question is it's not even an SRBC issue, it's a zoning issue. Because the zoning ordinance says they need it.
Well, it's not a zoning issue.
I'm talking to the Board of Supervisors.
Yeah, well, then that might be something that, we need to address in our zoning ordinance. If it's in there and it's improper, I'm not sure at this point. It's something we'll have to address in our zoning. And obviously, as you well know, there's a legal case, and if these things come up in the court of law and they say that we're violating zoning and the project gets shut down, then so be it.
I understand that. We can't adjust our zoning in the middle of a project.
Correct.
it's hard-coded. The next piece, last thing, I really appreciate you bringing up the environmental impact assessment again. To Mr. Courtney's statement about the independence is on the township side, I assume that means since you didn't catch it, it's good. And this is just a pattern. The owner of the data center is also the owner of Livick. They've amended general use permits that were applied to Cumberland Knoll so that there'd be no public commenting period about that. They declined to do a new environmental impact assessment last time. They declined to do it this time for the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. We're here, and this is by right, which means we didn't get hearings as a community to share alternative points of view on this whole process, and we might not be able to get a chance to do that again. And so this is bad behavior in sequence, and this is when the developer's supposed to be acting their best because they need approvals. And it's disheartening as someone who has to live with those environmental impacts to be told the independence is with the township and the township missed it. And we're just supposed to suck it up and deal with it.
This is your second time up, Mr. Bean?
Yes, I have a comment about asked about the hours working, is what I'm going to speak about, 303 Country Club Road. Previous meetings, when they started to dump the stone, that was brought up the hours. At that time, at a meeting, they were told that they would start at 7 o'clock in the morning. They would work at 5 o'clock and shut the gates by 6 o'clock in the evening. Well, I tell you now, they're out there at 6 o'clock, because I hear them every morning. So somewhere along the line, somebody didn't take notes or something, but they can't remember when we were told when they were supposed to work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me tell you what they don't get the company outstate. Michael Baker, we have an on-call agreement with Middlesex Township. So if this material, it will be a work order under that, but is this township engineering and the reference land development project is highlight potential and urgent matter, but will typical conduct this review, but he needs to outlet some item. He will feel more comfortable if he did not have to handle everything. I already have work order to review this transportation impact study for the township. That company work with the township.
I'm sorry.
Mike, somebody will respond?
Yeah, Michael Baker is a consultant to the township, just like my firm, HRG, is a consultant to the township. Michael Baker, I understand, has reviewed traffic impact studies for the township on numerous developments in the past and continued that relationship with this project. Specifically, the turn lane at Country Club Road and Route 11. Their representative reviewed the traffic impact study for that.
Good evening, Jim Garrett, 3351 Spring Road. The master developers agreement, extremely confusing. It's talked about many times. It was represented by the developers' representation tonight in a few different ways, a lack of consistency. Question I have is, has the township ever received a draft in this, whatever state of the master developers agreement? We talk about it, but I've never seen one. Does the township see the draft?
Yes, many times.
Okay.
And that township would have been me and Bud Grove.
Okay.
Mr. Hess, Bud Grove and I have been working on developing terms and conditions for that master development plan.
Okay.
Agreement. We've been going back and forth with Mr. Courtney.
How do we maintain the list of items that come up to be considered for inclusion? Because they're constantly talked about at, supervisor meetings, planning commission meetings.
What's your concern? That
Well,
there are things that the planning commission wants incorporated in the agreement that are not being incorporated?
Well, I don't know if they're included or not.
That's because it's not in a final form yet for this body to even consider. It's going to be.
Okay, so we'll maintain a list. some items for when we do get a chance. So
Sure.
That's really the question.
And
That's perfectly
because I'm here at all these meetings, hearing resident concerns, I'm relaying them
Right.
to the solicitor and to the engineers. Hey, these need to be in here and they need to be addressed in some fashion. So I don't think I'm missing anything because I've been at all these meetings. But if there's things that any resident has a concern about, send an email to me or to Zach at the township and say, I think these things are important to consider in an MDA, and we'll take that under consideration.
Earlier this evening, one of Charlie's comments was that the master development agreement is complete. Well, I take it as not complete. So it may be misspeaking at times and the references made, so it just gets quite confusing.
He's
So I
not
was looking for
misspeaking.
clarity.
He's not misspeaking. What he made clear was, there's a master developers agreement, there will be, and there are gonna be amendments to it. As some of these plans get closer to the final plan approval stage. Because a lot of the information that needs to be addressed can't be addressed properly until those points.
Okay.
If I'm misunderstanding that.
No, we are 100% on the same page, Steve. The initial version of the master development agreement that would be executed, and this would be before any final plan approval, will be dealing with financial security because the township desires to hold financial security even at the preliminary plan stage, and it will deal with the construction, reconstruction, repairs to Country Club Road. Those two items will be specifically dealt with. The remaining development items will be done with an amendment to that agreement prior to or in connection with final plan approval. That's what I said earlier.
Zach, another item. Thanks for the enhancements. Follow up on the speed control signs. I did see today that there are 4 backup, although the one coming back towards Carlisle Pike and the right side of the road was not functioning.
Yeah, I meant to say thank you for that. My apologies. Yes, thank you, guys. Arlene Darlington, 7509 Woodsville Road.
Good meeting, good discussions, good comments and questions. As I just kind of sit here tonight and just take in the dynamic, the energy, I think we're all exhausted, but we're not done. Being a process type person, I can see areas where there needs to be improvement. So I think my couple of questions sort of lean in that direction. And Phil, I appreciate your thoughtful comments, your leadership, your obvious knowledge and studying of the topic and all the different aspects of it. Sometimes I wish the developer would answer some of our questions, but so I just want to reiterate, because it was one of my questions that's been asked a couple times. So on this 3D rendering, do we have a commitment? Is there something I can write in my notes to say from the developer, not maybe from you, Phil, because it's not your deliverable. So Mr. Courtney and Nick, I don't remember your last name. When can we expect to see a 3D rendering?
Yeah, I think what Nick said earlier was that we were finalizing those renderings and we plan to submit them, to present them to the Planning Commission as early as July 13th?
Yes.
So July 13th.
Okay.
And it's interesting, if you go back and if you look at Charlie Thompson's article in December of 2024, which was in the paper about this development, again, it was some time ago, it was in Penn Live. There's a 3D rendering in that article, kind of an overall 3D sketch of what it's going to look like. If someone wants to, peel back into Penn Live.
Cool. Okay, well, all right, that's been brought up before. So, and then it was interesting to learn, I believe, Phil, you were asking about seeing the developers' comments to the county's, developers' responses to the county comments, and Mr. Courtney indicated he had sent them to Mark at the beginning of June. So just kind of wondering why you haven't seen them, that's now officially a month.
No, I think you just sent them,
June 1st.
oh, was it June 1st? Okay. Well, and that's just something we would have to internally work on our process, because I want to see everything that comes in regards to this. So Mark said he'll send them to us, and hopefully, Mark, you'll work on when these things come in that it's important for the supervisors to be aware of, that just add our contacts and send the email.
Yeah, especially since you're the folks that are making the decision, and now here we are tonight at the 13th hour again, and you haven't, there's information that you're missing.
And again, this is preliminary land development. It's not final.
Yep. And then to that, kind of just all goes together. As a project manager, I would always have to have a timeline for all my stakeholders, for all my deliverables, different functions. So does that exist from the developer to the board, which is the primary stakeholders, and certainly to all of us? I mean, there's been many meetings where people had to ask, well, you're asking Mark, well, what's the due date for our decision on this? It turns out it's today. And I'm not putting you on the spot, I'm just asking, is it not published? It should be here on the wall. There should be a slide showing this is where we are in the development plan. I don't care if it's 5 years out. These line items ought to be transparent. I know they shift given different things, but we don't get to shift our decision making. But they. How do we know? How do we know what they're doing?
Well, and Mark, hold on, I'm going to address this. I think this is I think it's a good idea for us to consider putting the submission date for the plan and the review dates of when they have to happen. I knew what had to happen today. I asked him that question for the audience to let you know what happens. And we could say, well, we're going to ask for extension. They're going to they're going to deny, and we're going to say, okay, we're not doing anything, and then it means it's approved. And that doesn't help anybody. If we vote no, they're going to take us to court. And this is what we get every time. They'll say, well, that's good. Say no, they can take us to court. That's it's not going to work out well for the township or the residents. But Mark, if you have a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, the deadline for plan action is on every commission agenda under each item.
I do see that. Honestly, I do. But there ought to be a whole project timeline and the dates and what the deliverables are. That would be a better. I don't know if it has to. We don't see it.
Yeah, I think that's so we'll have to talk about internally is can we put that timeline on when the plan was submitted and when we have to act on it, and so you know what's coming and what the drop dead dates are.
It just helps with the whole communication and our request for more transparency.
Okay.
And I think, so it sounds like tonight you have to vote, approve yes or no. But there's only two of you here, and Mr. Goodhart's not here, so.
Two is a quorum on a board of 3.
Oh, okay. Can we get a board of 5?
If we become a class 1 township, we get big enough, like Hampton, then it'll be a 5-member board.
So is that a requirement that it's driven by population?
Yes, it's population density.
Okay, I did not, thank you.
Yep.
Can I ask a second question?
If it's brief.
Okay. Beth LeGorge, 3 T-Berry Drive. Just to follow on the vote. If the only way to vote you're saying is you have to say yes or you could get pulled into litigation, what happens if you abstain and note that you have qualms about what's happening and that you're not getting a new environmental impact act agreement or review? Or, I mean, can you do that and not get in trouble, just so for the record people see, if you feel that way? I'm not putting words
right.
in your mouth.
If we don't vote, it's deemed approval.
But you could have a note in the record saying that
it doesn't matter. If we don't vote, it's deemed approval.
Okay, but there's a lot of scrutiny for everybody on these minutes, and your constituents, the people you represent, may feel better knowing that you made a note that you weren't in full agreement, even though it's.
Right.
And
Thank you.
again, not putting words in your mouth.
All right. I'm going make a motion, I move that we approve relief from the following sections of the Middlesex Township Subdivision Land Development Ordinance number 8-2017, Saldo, and the Middlesex Township Stormwater Management Ordinance 6-2011, SWMO, for the preliminary land development plan for Pennsylvania Digital 1, Phase 2, subject to providing written request and justification for each relief sought and listing the relief sought on the cover sheet of the plan set. Number 1, Saldo 501.A2, modification of requirement for plan scale not smaller than 1 inch to 100 feet. Number 2, Saldo 501A6, modification of requirement for location map scale not smaller than 1 inch to 1,000 feet. Number 3, Saldo 501C19, 303J12, 303K12, deferral until final plan of requirements for meets and bounds descriptions of easements. Number 4, Saldo 703I4, waiver of requirements for the crest curb and driveway entrance openings along PA Data Drive. Number 5, Saldo 707, waiver of requirements for installation of sidewalks and pedestrian paths along both sides of new interior streets with required note on plan. Number 6, Saldo 718D3A, 718D4A, 718D4B, 718D4C, 718D4D, modification of requirements for minimum plan scale not more than 1 inch to 100 feet for required maps and physical resources within the Environmental Impact Assessment Report. Number 7, Saldo 501C12, deferral until final plan of requirements for acceptable design and phasing of country club roadway improvements with a preliminary plan. Number 8, SWMO 302.A13, deferral until final plan of requirements to provide construction details for stormwater inlets. Number 9, SWMO 303H12, deferral until final plan of requirements to provide geotechnical engineer certification of stormwater managed release concept design. And number 10, SWMO 303J3, modification of requirement for stormwater detention basin side slopes not to be steeper than 4 units horizontal to 1 unit vertical, and for stormwater detention basin bottom slopes not to be less than 2%. Number 11, SWMO 303H17, modification of requirement for all stormwater infiltration practices to infiltrate the stored volume within 48 hours. Number 12, SWMO 303B2, modification of requirement for infiltration of surface water runoff at its source as a primary mechanism for stormwater management. Number 13, SWMO 719B2, 719B3, deferral until final plan of requirements to provide final landscaping plan. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Take a breath.
I move that we approve relief from the following sections of the Middlesex Township Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance number 8-2017. Middlesex.
You take action on the plan.
What?
You read
You only did the waivers.
you did the waivers for the plan, now you do the motion.
Motion number 2.
Motion number 2.
For phase 2.
Okay, so
I missed that. Thank you. So I move that we approve the preliminary land development plan for PAX 1 Phase 2, subject to the following conditions: that the applicant satisfied all comments and conditions of Township Engineer Budgrove PE in written review letter number 4 of J. Michael Hess PE of HRG dated 6/8/26 in a manner acceptable to the Township Engineer, subject to his final review. Number 2, that the applicant satisfies all comments and conditions of the Township Engineer, Budgrove PE, in a written sound study review letter number 1 of J. Michael Hess PE of HRG, dated 4/23/2026, in a manner acceptable to the Township Engineer, subject to his final review. Number 3, that the applicant satisfies all comments of the Cumberland County Planning Department in written review dated 2026 for plan number P25-1176, that a restrictive covenant be added to the plan by note stating that no water wells will be drilled on the property, and that all existing water wells on the property will be properly abandoned and sealed in accordance with PADEP regulations. Number 5, that per section 710E2B of the subdivision and land development ordinance number 8-2017, as amended, the applicant pays to Middlesex Township the required fee in lieu of dedication of park and recreation areas for the subdivision of $1,000 per disturbed acre of development area prior to the final plans being signed by the township and released for recording. Lastly, number 6, that the applicant enters into a developer's agreement with Middlesex Township regarding required public improvement and post financial security for required public improvements, as-built plans and engineering inspection fees for this plan with the township in an amount acceptable to the township engineer and form acceptable to the township solicitor prior to the final plans being signed by the township and released for recording. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to phase 1C. I move that we approve relief from the following sections: the Middlesex Township Subdivision Land Development Ordinance 8-2017 and Middlesex Township Stormwater Management Ordinance number 6-2011 for the preliminary land development plan for Tax 1 Phase 1C, subject to providing written request and justification for each relief sought and listing the relief sought on the cover sheet of the plan set. Number 1, Saldo 501A2, modification of requirement for plan scale not smaller than 1 inch to 100 feet. Number 2, Saldo 501A6, modification of requirement for location map scale not smaller than 1 inch to 1,000 feet. Number 3, Saldo 501C12, deferral until final plan of requirements for acceptable design and phasing of Country Club Road improvements with preliminary plan. Number 4, Saldo 718D3A, 718D4A, 718D4B, 718D4C, 718D4D. Modification of requirements for minimum plan scale not more than 1 inch to 100 feet for required maps of physical resources within the environmental impact assessment report. Number 5, Saldo 719B2, 719B3, deferral until final plan of requirements to provide final landscaping plan. Number 6, SWMO 302A13, deferral until final plan of requirements to provide construction details for stormwater inlets. Number 7, SWMO 303B2, modification of requirement for infiltration of surface water runoff at its source as a primary mechanism for stormwater management. Number 8, SWMO 303H12, deferral until final plan of requirements to provide geotechnical engineer certification of stormwater management, managed release, asset design. Number 9, SWMO 303H17, modification of requirement for all stormwater infiltration practices to infiltrate the stored volume within 48 hours. Number 10, SWMO 303J3, modification of requirement for stormwater detention basin side slopes not to be steeper than 4 units horizontal to 1 unit vertical, and for stormwater detention basin bottom slopes not to be less than 2%. Number 11.
It's number 3 on the other.
Yep, I got it.
Okay.
Saldo 501C19, 303J12, 303K12, deferral until final plan of requirements for meets and bounds description of easements.
Bill, I think that's it.
Number 12, the SWMO 303H17.
We already covered that though. It's number 9 on, that you already read. Number 9 on the second page. We already covered it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I thought you said we had to add one.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah, that's what I wrote down, but it's already covered.
I see, yes, it is, correct.
Thank you.
last one. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Is there a executive session? Oh, motion.
One more motion. Conditional capital.
It's hot. I move that we approve the preliminary land development plan for Tax 1, Phase 1C, subject to the following conditions. Number one, that the applicant satisfies all comments and conditions of the township engineer, Bud Grove PE, in written review letter number 2 of J. Michael Hess PE of HRG dated 6/8/2026 in a manner acceptable to the township engineer, subject to his final review. Number 2, that the applicant satisfies all comments of the Cumberland County Planning Department in written review dated 5/11/2026 for plan number P26-302. Number 3, that per section 710E2B of the subdivision and land development ordinance number 8-2017, as amended, the applicant pays to Middlesex Township the required fee in lieu of dedication of park and recreation areas for the subdivision of $1,000 per disturbed acre of development area prior to the final plans being signed by the township and released for recording. Number 4, that the applicant enters into a developer's agreement with Middlesex Township regarding required public improvements and post financial security for required public improvements, as-built plans and engineering inspection fees for this plan with the township in an amount acceptable to the township engineer and form acceptable to the township solicitor prior to the final plans being signed by the township and released for recording. Number 5, that a note be added to the plan indicating that whether temporary construction site trailer use on Tax 1, Phase 1C is no longer needed, the site will be returned to original grades and meadow conditions, except for areas with established berm buffers and landscaping screenings, with language of such plan note being in a manner acceptable to the township engineer, subject to his final review. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Do you
Motion
agree with
carries.
the conditions?
As to both plans, yes.
He is agreed. Executive session.
Executive session for personnel and potential.
Okay, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.